It has been well said by an eminent occultist, man is most ignorant of those things which are most manifest. In some departments of nature this is true, and probably in no other manifested department of his being is this true more strikingly apparent than in that which relates to his sexual nature. He is aware that animal nature is divided into two great classes, male and female, but he knows almost nothing of the spiritual principles which underlie this physical expression of sex. He is fully aware that the union of the two organisms is necessary for the purpose of procreation, but he is fearfully ignorant of those interior processes which produce the actual germs of life. He is more or less acquainted with the fact that in the lower stratas of animated existence, bisexual organisms are the general rule, and that occasionally this bisexual nature becomes manifested among men, as seen in the hermaphrodite, but he is quite at a loss to account for such monstrous productions. So, feeling ignorant of it.
What is that about bisexuality?
Well, what he's saying is that some people consider this as a monstrous human being who is hermaphrodite, but he's arguing for the sake of astrology that these are born. Many of these, well, most of them, are born in such a way, and according to the stars and the rulings of the stars. So,
wait a minute. Hold on a second. Before you dig back in there, that's a good point. Now, that's something I haven't thought of and haven't heard discussed. That a person's sexual proclivity, their preference, or their birth choice, or whatever the case may be, gay, straight, bisexual, trisexual, trying to have sex and can't, all kind of stuff, that can be determined in their chart, in their astrology.
oh yeah, absolutely, but that's organic bisexuality. That's natural. It's nothing to do with this superimposed one by the elite class who sodomize little children and teach it in their MTV music and all of their demonic outlets of the left-hand path. Okay.
All right.
So what was the question?
Question was about bisexuality. Well, the question I got in my email, that's why I brought this up, was that a person can be homosexual or lesbian and still be on the right-hand path.
Well, if they practice right-hand sex, loving sex, yes.
Okay.
How can a woman help if she loves another woman? How can she help that? That's love. But it has to be purified love. It's the grossness of the ejaculatory sex which is really condemned, and it's only condemned subtly. It's not that rigorous. In here, Firmicus Maternus, there's another book you can get. This is a must-have for syncretism. This is a 2,000-year-old book, man. There's chapters on homosexuality and how to read the chart of a homosexual and how to find homosexuality in the chart.
Really?
Okay. Yeah, and what does he say, and how does that happen? Well, let's read how this happens. Let's read the mechanisms of how homosexuality happens then, shall we? So, astrological wisdom. Geez, if I had okay. Seventh book, toward the end.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to be reading from the Astrologer's Oath, because they were under oath to respect and not to contaminate the holy science, not to be overeating, not to be going to the shows and the circuses, not to be over drinking, to be holy and godly. That's the astrologer. When Orpheus initiated strangers into the mysteries, he required nothing of them but an oath backed by the fearful authority of religion, that the rites once learned would not be betrayed to profane ears. It is generally agreed that Plato also was concerned that the cherished concepts of his secret discourses should not be revealed to the untaught. Pythagoras too, and our Porphyry, the Neoplatonist, an astrologer, and non-ejaculator, and vegan. They were all vegetarian. Pythagorean, Plato, all vegetarians. Sorry, I digest. I digress. Therefore, following the rule of these men, my dear Mavortius, I beg you to take an oath by God, the creator of the universe, who has made and regulated everything under the control of everlasting necessity, who has shaped the sun and moon, who arranged the order of the courses of all the stars, who collected the waves of the sea between boundaries of land, who forever kindles the encircling divinity of the heavens, who maintains the earth balanced evenly in the middle of the universe, The astrologers knew about the geocentric horizontal plane of the earth. Simple. Who has created with his majestic divine skill all men, beasts, birds, and every manner of living thing, who moistens the earth with ever-flowing fountains, who makes constant and ever-changing the breath of winds, who has created all things out of the four contrasting elements, who initiated the rising and setting of the stars and the movements of the earth, who set up the stars as stations for the ascent and descent of the souls. We beg you to take an oath that these doctrines revered will not be revealed to profane ears, but that the entire teaching of divinity will be made known only to those equipped with pure splendour of mind, whom an uncorrupted soul has led to the right path of life, whose loyalty, that was a good slip, whose loyalty is above reproach, whose hands are free of all crime. Receive, therefore, the detailed account with which the greatest trepidation of spirit we have promised you. All right, that's the oath.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as I said, there's whole chapters in here on how to read the sign of bisexuals, homosexuals, all of this. Now, the third book, okay? Here, I'm going to read this. This is how God, magnetism, works through astrology. Okay, the 12 signs, the 12 apostles, posts of Jesus, the 12 disciples of Jesus. We propose to translate into propositions the entire literature of the Mathesius. This is the Mathesius. Okay, this is Firmicus Maternus, 4th century.
Wow.
In the first place, my dear Lollianus, we must be aware that God, the Creator, copying nature, has made man in the image of the universe, a mixture of 4 elements, fire, water, air, and earth, so that a well-proportioned combination might produce the living being as a divine imitation. With his divine skill, he so composed man that the whole force and essence of the elements is collected in that small body. In this way, he prepared a lodging for the divine spirit which descends from the heavenly soul to maintain the mortal body. This spirit, though fragile, is nevertheless a likeness of the spirit of the universe. Thus man, like a tiny universe, is sustained by the everlasting fiery movement of the 5 planets and the sun and moon. So, how does God do it? Well, through the 5 planets and the sun and the moon. All right, so now that I've divested and diverged, I'll go back to the sex of the spiritual kind of Thomas H. Burgoyne. So he continues there as he's been talking about these monstrous productions of hermaphrodites and how they are inexplicable to ordinary man, mundane man, of mundane nature. Hence it may be truly said that man is most ignorant of those things which are most manifest. Therefore, in order to enable the general reader to clearly grasp the various connecting links in the mystical ramifications of sex, to see their perfect harmony, and to understand their relation to each other, we will first speak of the origin of sex. Secondly, describe as clearly as possible its nature and functions. Thirdly, point out the relation of the sexes to each other. And lastly, present a brief application of the whole as it relates to man, the universe, and the immortality of the soul. So I'm going to read the first bit, how it relates to man. Okay?
All right.
Deity is unity. How beautiful is that? Deity is unity. The infinite ocean of formless spirit within its latent blossom contains all that is, all that ever can be. Therefore, it contains all the elements of sex in their primal state. When the first pulsations of that thought which evolved the divine idea became manifest, nature arrayed herself under the two modes of motion, action and reaction. The inbreathing and outbreathing of this divine thought thus instituted the first spiritual attributes of sex in the earliest dawn of creation. Each function of the deific soul, which we may designate as the inspiration and respiration of the universe life current, thus became differentiated for all eternity as the primary fundamental principle of manifested being. The Kabbalistic initiates of the ages that are gone formulated this same biune spirit as love and wisdom. Love is the negative or feminine ray, is content and ever seeks to enfold. Wisdom, as the positive masculine ray, is restless and always in pursuit. The feminine forces are ever striking to encircle the atom, and the masculine forces to propel it in a straight line. From this dual action of the spiritual potentialities is born the spiral, the motion of life and symbol of eternal progression. We cannot attempt at any explanation of how the first deific forms of sexual life become ultimated, nor of the why and wherefore of this celestial existence. It is enough for us that we are enabled by the laws of correspondence to trace the origin of sex to the shores of the great fountain of all existence, and to proclaim it to the world as the first principle in that great central ego from which all manifested egos derive their being. In order that we may comprehend somewhat of the mysteries of sex as we see them from manifested in humanity, we must descend from the practically inconceivable heights of celestial glory and seek for the links of this continuous chain with the highest states of life approachable by the embodied human soul, vis-a-vis the angelic sphere of the soul world. Only in these states can we obtain any definite idea of the interior significance of sex and its mighty importance as a factor in the immortality of the human soul. The first link of this celestial chain, as we have seen, lies concealed within the bosom of the Infinite One. What the succeeding ones may contain, we cannot tell. What the succeeding ones may contain, we cannot tell, but that they will bear a perfect correspondence to the angelic state, we are certain. making due allowance for the difference of their respective states. Therefore, since we know the origin of sex, we will consider its correlativeness with which we have designated. Okay, there's a lot of really good stuff here, man. I might just continue reading because this is very important. This is what all of those young guys need to learn to get on the right-hand path, and how beautiful it is. The reason I'm reading out of this book is to come to the conclusion, to share with you that sex, to get to the celibate high-end state of sex, we must pass from the debauched left ejaculatory side and go all the way over to the right where the highest end of celibacy is, and go through the middle. And through the middle, we will learn about grey tantra and white tantra, and in the middle, we will exhaust all of the sexual reserve that we have coiled up in our bodies. Once we exhaust that, you see, sex is there for us to exhaust it. In other words, to exhaust its purpose, both physically, and spiritually. So the sooner partners start engaging in spiritual sex, the sooner they can create better things in that realm, okay, like syncretism, for instance.
For example, yeah. What's the name of the book you're reading from?
The Light of Egypt.
Okay.
Volume 1, The Science of the Soul and the Stars. Okay, so now let's proceed with...
Let me ask you, are there any questions so far? Let's see here. Let me try to miss anything in the chat there. Okay, I think we're good. Go ahead, Santos.
Okay, so part number 2, okay? Its nature and functions. So sex, its nature and functions. In the previous chapter, we have described in a very brief manner the actual differentiation of the human ego as a deific atom of life. We need not therefore repeat any of the description there given. So we will only add that it must be a self-evident fact that this ego contains within itself all the primary elements of sex, but in a latent condition. These attributes have not yet been subjected to the requisite conditions for their evolution. In this state, then, there is neither love nor wisdom manifested within the ego. It cannot know happiness when it is ignorant of the contrary. It cannot form any conception of rest when weariness cannot approach. There can be no real love for the ego when it has never experienced the various contrary conditions by which love is distinguished. The wisdom of the ego in this state is equally latent, since it possesses no means of arriving at a true knowledge of the various surroundings. In this state, then, we behold the spiritual atom in its primal condition, wherein the true power of God hath just created it. It is in the first spiritual Adam. The various series of states through which this divine ego must penetrate in order to evolve its soul sphere are the necessary means by which the internal potentialities of sex must be awakened. When this transpires, the divine ego becomes pregnant with the dual forms of its own organic life, and the twin souls are born, the male and female elements of its being, which are represented in Genesis as Adam and Eve, knowing neither good nor evil. A beautiful description, this, of the embryonic human souls. These twin souls are the absolute expression of the masculine and feminine rays of which every absolute atomic ego is composed. The masculine ray contains a portion of the feminine elements, or there could be no reaction of its forces. The feminine ray must likewise contain a portion of the positive qualities for the same reason. These souls, therefore, contain a portion of each other. They constitute the sun and moon, so to say, of the ego's creation. And when once they become differentiated, they are as eternal and immortal as the ego which called them into existence. They can be neither absorbed or annihilated by time nor eternity.